The Speed Force is a major concept from the DC Comics universe. Not only is it the explanation for the Speedster's powers in the DCU, it is also another plane of existence, with a different structure and formation to our own. Now before I start, the most important thing to realise about the Speed Force is that it does not abide by laws such as time and dimension. It often bends around the two, causing those attached to sometimes gain superhuman powers, most often being super speed. Before I get onto how this can happen, I have to explain the creation of the Speed Force. For years, the Speed Force was just a thing that existed, presumably since the creation of the universe. That was until famous Green Lantern writer Geoff Johns came along with his take. In the Flash arc Rebirth, John explains that Barry Allen, the second and arguably most well-known Flash, created the Speed Force himself. Barry gained his powers in a freak accident at a crime lab, where he was exposed to many different chemicals and struck by lightning all at the same time. In Rebirth, Johns explains that in that moment, Barry didn't tap into the Speed Force, he created it. As he ran, it grew and spread. The more he used it, the more powerful it became, until it hit the constraints of time itself and refused to stop. Barry provided the Speed Force with so much energy that it was able to transcend time and grow to exist well before and after the accident that spawned it. This enabled it to connect with many others in all different forms. Jay Jarrick, chronologically, was the first Flash, and the inspiration for Barry's superhero persona. He tapped into the Speed Force when he mistakenly ingested the chemical deuterium oxide, also known as heavy water. However, if it wasn't for the incident with Barry that occurred more than 50 years after Jarrick became the Flash, there would not have been any Speed Force to tap into. Now, Flash was no stranger to time travel story arcs, as his power would sometimes allow for the ability to travel through time and into different dimensions. What was so great about this particular idea was that it gave all these stories more depth. When Barry or other speedsters travelled in time, we can now give a reason to it, other than the very outdated, if you go fast enough on a treadmill, you're bound to end up somewhere cool. Unfortunately for the speedy heroes, Johns was determined to tie this theory to every speedster in the DC universe, good or bad, and you can bet that he didn't leave out the worst of them all. Professor Eobard Thawne, better known as Professor Zoom, or the Reverse Flash. A villain so smart, so powerful, and so absolutely evil, he holds the title for the only man who pushed Barry to the last resort: murder. Zoom was from the future, but often travelled back to torment Barry as part of his insane hatred for him. The last time Barry fought the Reverse Flash, he was fighting to save his second love, after his first's life was taken by Zoom. In a desperate attempt to stop history from repeating itself, Barry made a wild grab for his nemesis, while both were speeding towards the girl, causing Zoom's neck to break, killing him. In Rebirth, Zoom returns from the grave, explaining that sometime in the future, he is resurrected. It is revealed that Zoom has discovered the origin of the Speed Force, and Barry's part in it. This only drives him more insane. Without Barry, there is no Reverse Flash. He decides to create balance. Just as Barry created the Speed Force, Zoom creates the negative Speed Force, a power with the purpose to infect and take over its counterpart. Zoom runs, just as Barry did. The only difference is he knows exactly what his running is creating, so he doesn't stop. The negative Speed Force begins to grow and grow until it has infected the Speed Force and Barry himself. The Reverse Flash becomes almost unstoppable, seeming to be able to travel in time almost instantaneously without any technological aid. It takes a team of 7 speedsters to take him down, which included 3 Flashes, 4 if you count Kid. This is one of the many examples of how the Speed Force concept can be used to make interesting and sometimes head-hurting story arcs. There are many other times where the Speed Force has allowed writers to put speedsters in situations they would not normally find themselves in. For example, a mysterious man with super speed, gold boots, randomly turning up in a Marvel comic book at the same time that Barry Allen was trapped in the Speed Force. But that's a different story for a different time. To conclude, I feel like part of what makes Flash and his supporting cast apart from all the other heroes with super speed is the concept of the Speed Force. It allows writers to take characters with years of personality and do something different with them. As with most comics, the writer's interpretation of the character and its world is the driving force of his entire run. That was pretty bad. As always, if you want more comic book knowledge, remember to hit subscribe and maybe even check out Man on Fire Films' Facebook and Twitter. I've been Cameron Morris, and this was Comic Talk.